Hi, Texas Division of Emergency Management staff. Please take a few minutes to hear what Chief Nim Kidd is recommending on how to vet volunteers for future disasters.
As we look at the final piece on our policy recommendations, we want to really work with you on volunteer management. As you heard, we had 17,000 volunteers show up. And a lot of those were just good-hearted Texans, good-hearted Americans, bringing their resources, their time and treasure, their heavy equipment, working really hard around the clock for no thanks and no pay. That was most of them. But then there are the others that we really need to keep an eye on as well. So we have an organization that you funded several sessions ago called the Incident Support Task Force, the Disaster Recovery Task Force. We have the capability to, in real time, within the first 12 hours of an incident, the first operational period, set up a volunteer reception center where all volunteers should go, and they should check in, and they should share with us their capabilities and what they're capable to do. Are they unskilled labor? Are they electricians and carpenters? Are they want to help sort clothes, or do they want to search for live and missing victims? Fact of the matter is, people come in so quick that we can't control them sometimes, and we don't know who they are. Yet they're going through all of your personal belongings. They're in places that nobody else is supervising or watching them. And I think we should have a deliberate conversation, whether it's here or some point in the future, about making volunteers check in at a location for their safety and for our safety and for their coordination and communication. You may recall that during the time that we were searching, there were several times we had to evacuate the river because of ongoing flooding. When the volunteers check in at a volunteer reception center, they share with us their cell phone number, and they can text a code to us that I can then communicate with them that says, hey, something's coming, get off the river. Or, hey, I need you to check in. The other thing is, once I'm tracking those volunteer hours, we can then use those for in-kind donations from the local community or the state in our FEMA matching grant program. So there's a really good resource and a reason to do this. The next thing I hope we get to have a conversation about is mass fatality management. When an incident happens like it did in Kerr County and overwhelms the local capabilities and the resources, the justices of the peace and the funeral homes, we have an organization that we can bring in to support that. But that organization is really not codified anywhere in statute. And I think we should have a conversation about what the Texas Mortuary Assistance Team can do and what role they can play and what we can do to support our JPs and our MEs and our sheriffs whenever we have an incident that overwhelms those local capabilities. I know we're going to talk about interoperable communications a lot, so I won't talk about it much now, but I will tell you, I went to Kerrville on Friday morning. As soon as I got the text, I went straight there, about an hour and a half drive from my house. And I ran into some of my guys from the San Antonio Fire Department that I worked with back when I was in the field as a lieutenant on the technical rescue team. And I had my radio with me, and I asked to be able to talk to them on theirs. But their San Antonio radio doesn't work in that footprint. So they had some really cheap Chinese radios that they were talking to each other on. We're better than that. We can do better than that, and we need to. We also should have a deliberate conversation about the credentialing of emergency managers at the local level. Today, in Chapter 418, you've heard emergency management directors by statute are mayors and county judges. You will see the words emergency management coordinator listed twice in Chapter 418, only twice. It says the emergency management director may appoint an emergency management coordinator. The emergency management coordinator is an assistant to the director. Period. There's no minimum qualifications to be an emergency management coordinator in the state of Texas. It's whoever the county judge or whoever the mayor appoints. We're better than that. And finally, I'm grateful for your funding and everything that you've given us, but we have a lot of work that we still need to do. Our agency is very small, and I look forward to future conversations about things that we need to continue to support our great state.
Hello, Texas Division of Emergency Management. We are AidTrace, and we have a solution built specifically for state emergency management and disaster coordinators. Our volunteer operations management system is designed to give your agency verified identity, operational safety, liability protection, and funds on demand, all in one place. Let's talk about what's happening on the ground today. Volunteer onboarding and post-event reporting are defined processes, but the operational phase between them is not, and their real exposures live in that gap. Unrecoverable federal funds. Inadequate record-keeping and self-attested hours routinely fail OIG audits. Applicants leave material recovery reimbursement on the table as a direct result. Volunteer verification. Volunteers accepted without verification create unnecessary liability and safety risks. Federal and state volunteer protection statutes generally depend on a volunteer being properly credentialed, verified, and assigned at the time of service. Without a clear record showing who the volunteer was, how they were verified, and what role they were assigned to, organizations may not be able to rely on those liability protections if an incident occurs. Volunteers exposed, bad actors enabled. Inconsistency in recording volunteer location or assignment means no real-time accounting when something goes wrong. That same gap creates space for impersonation, theft, and fraudulent claims of service in disrupted environments. The underlying problem is the absence of a verifiable record of who was where, doing what, and for how long. That is exactly what A-Trace solves. A-Trace creates one real-time, accurate record achieved through a combination of data capture, operational coordination, and analytical processing. Data is generated through normal participation in the operation, requiring minimal additional effort from volunteers or coordinators. That record is identity verified, bound to a credentialed person. Time-bound. Each entry is individually time-stamped, location-aware. Each predetermined site and volunteer's movements are recorded. Role-specific. Assignment and capability bound to each individual. Durable. Tamper-evident and audit-ready. From this one record, 4 agency outcomes follow: volunteer integrity, operational control, defensible liability, and operational safety. The same record that satisfies audit also runs the operation. Coordinators stop chasing reports and start running the response. Here's how the 4 core capabilities work together. Verified volunteers. Verifying volunteers before deployment strengthens safety, accountability, and coordination. By scanning a government-issued ID and completing background checks at setup, organizations can confirm each volunteer's identity, assign them to appropriate roles, and maintain real-time counts of credentialed volunteers by site, role, capability, and location. Multi-site visibility and control. One view across the full operational footprint. Imbalances surface as they form, not after. Volunteers receive a volunteer ID wristband, giving disaster coordinators the ability to move volunteers between sites and tasks based on current need and verified qualifications. Financial instruments for field operations. Digital visa disbursements can be issued to verified volunteers for approved field needs such as food, lodging, fuel, and supplies. Every transaction is tied to the volunteer's verified identity record, strengthening accountability, oversight, and post-event reporting, volunteer and zone safety. Understaffed sites, missing capabilities, and credential mismatches are flagged automatically. Volunteer welfare checks trigger with full location history attached, allowing rapid response for volunteers in need. Zone safety can be assessed live, and alerts can be sent to volunteers in areas deemed unsafe. Coordinators see what is happening. They do not have to ask. Pre-registered volunteers arrive cleared. Walk-ups are verified on the spot. The record begins the moment they enter the site. Here is the life cycle from arrival to a verified record in minutes. Step 1. Identity. Each volunteer's government ID is scanned and authenticated. A background check is then initiated automatically. Step 2. Onboarding. Pre-registered volunteers or spontaneous walk-up volunteers scan a QR code and are approved through the on-site disaster coordinator. Step 3. Activation. A volunteer ID bracelet is issued. These wristbands are color-coded to ensure each role is made visible in the field. Step 4. Field activity. Presence, movement, and assignment are captured across all sites. Step 5. Record. Every event is signed and anchored. Reports build themselves as work happens. Multi-site visibility and control. A-Trace creates the foundation for oversight and accountability across your entire operational footprint. Each volunteer is issued a color-coded volunteer ID wristband. This way, their role is visible at a glance in the field. Real-time location is tracked and stored across all active sites, and entry and exit from designated disaster areas are auto-timestamped. Our defined response zones provide flexible coverage across disaster events of varying size and scale: floods, tornadoes, hurricanes, fires, while maintaining location accuracy down to as little as 3 meters. All data is stored and audit-ready for compliance and federal reporting. The same record that defines the operational footprint also satisfies the federal audit. Beyond the verified record itself, AidTrace supports a complementary capability: digital Visa cards issued to volunteers in the field for food, lodging, fuel, and emergency needs. Every transaction flows into the same verified identity record. Here is how it works. Step 1. The disaster event coordinator identifies volunteers or staff who are in need of funds. Step 2. The digital card is loaded with the appropriate amount needed for food, lodging, supplies, or other resources. Step 3. A digital card is sent via email or text. Step 4. That digital card can then be used at any pre-approved location where a digital visa is accepted. Step 5. All transactions are then logged to the verified identity record. Volunteer safety made operational. Emergency zone. Continuous knowledge of where each volunteer is and what they are doing is duty of care made operational. The same record also makes the environment inhospitable to bad actors. Protective. Duty of care made operational. Emergency zone notifications. Alerts all volunteers in zones deemed unsafe or at risk. Welfare triggers. No movement detection, distress signals, and coordinator-initiated checks. Fast response. Alerts arrive with location data and individual identity integrated. Defensible record. A reconstruction of the timeline is able to be easily created due to the review process. Deterrent. Inhospitable to bad actors. Every action is tied to a verified person, not an anonymous walk-up. Borrowed IDs stop working when credentials are checked at the door. Movement patterns make opportunistic abuse easier to detect. Hours that were not worked do not appear in the record. AidTrace is built to start small enough to validate against a real event and structured to scale across the full state response footprint and into the broader region. Phase 1. Disaster Management Simulation. We will begin with a mock simulation event to demonstrate viability. A volunteer sign-up simulation in a controlled setting, such as College Station, would allow participants to complete the full onboarding and verification process before moving through a realistic disaster response scenario. This shows how volunteers are registered, credentialed, assigned, tracked, and supported throughout the event. Phase 2. Texas Division of Emergency Management Partnership. A TDEM partnership would validate the platform in a real emergency management environment and demonstrate its value at scale. By working with TDEM, the program would be positioned to support volunteer registration, credentialing, deployment tracking, safety monitoring, and post-event reporting across disaster response operations. Stafford Act emergency procurement and existing state cooperative vehicles provide the contracting paths. Pilot deployment can begin within a single declared event. Your volunteers show up when it matters. Now you will have the tools to show up for them. Here is how we get started. Schedule a working session. Walk through the system tailored to your agency's response footprint. Identify specific needs. Define the first activation network, volunteer population, and scope. Begin pre-disaster onboarding. Build the verified roster now, before the next event begins. Align on procurement path. Confirm the route and design an implementation plan. AidTrace delivers every hour identity verified at capture, a continuous and location-aware operational record, tamper-evident and audit-grade documentation by construction, real-time control during the response, reusable identity across deployments, and a system engineered for low unit cost. Thank you for giving us your time. We hope this video has answered some of your questions about how AidTrace can help modernize volunteer management and disaster relief delivery for Texas and beyond.